This was at Sully's gym?
Sully's gym. There's a lot of guys involved back in '68, '69 that helped me out with certain with the jab, with the right hand. But then Travis got involved back in 1970, and Travis taught me everything that I know now today.
How did you end up getting introduced to Travis?
He was a fighter himself there with Sully's. He boxed with Muhammad Ali there in '67 when George fought Ali. Here he was Ali's sparring partner.
Was he just an amateur boxer?
Yeah, no, he had a few pro fights. He didn't do that well.
Okay.
But his training parts were excellent. You know, to teach other fighters the boxing game. He was good at that. I liked him.
We're here in Guelph. Nice park.
Welcome to the DO Boxing Show. I'm your host, Dameon Okposio. Thanks for tuning into this episode. We're here talking with Hall of Famer Nicky Furlano and Dave Hutchinson, a former amateur boxer, and we're just going to be finding out about Nicky's amateur and pro career. How did you get your start in boxing?
We came here in '65 with my parents from Italy. Santa Nicola, it's called a town in Italy, Calabria in the mountains. I don't know. I guess my parents got a note from his brother. His brother to come over to Canada. That it's you know, better, more things to do here, jobs and everything. So my dad decided to come over. Came in '65. Started school, all that stuff. I met a friend. He was always carrying this bag. I didn't even know what it was. There was gloves hanging from his bag, and I told him, "What are you doing?" He said, "None of your business, right?" I guess he was going to the gym, so I ended up following this guy, and ended up at the gym, and that's how I ended up going. I went myself. I got a pair of shorts, running shoes, and things started working out there.
So when you first went to the gym, who was the coach there?
It was Sully. Sully was, wow, that's a tough. Sully owned the gym. He was there. That was at Ossiton, 109 Ossiton. And there was this other guy. No, before him. Man, I forget his name. I know he's dead now, but he started me off. You know, meanwhile, there was a lot of guys involved there. There was, see, I'm back for names.
This is at Sully's gym?
Sully's gym. There was a lot of guys involved back in '68, '69. That helped me out with certain with the jab, with the right hand. But then Travis got involved back in 1970, and Travis taught me everything that I know now today.
How did you end up getting introduced to Travis?
He was a fighter himself there with Sully's. He boxed with Muhammad Ali there in '67 when George fought Ali. Here he was Ali's sparring partner.
Was he just an amateur boxer?
Yeah, no, he had a few pro fights. He didn't do that well.
Okay.
But his training parts were excellent. You know, to teach other fighters the boxing game. He was good at that. I liked him.
Excellent. And so how did things progress as an amateur? Like, did you train with Travis as an amateur boxer?
Yeah, all the amateur, pro. Travis was teaching not just myself. There was Eddie Mello. You know, there was Joe Ballerino, there was Sammy Reese, there was all, you know, even Chris Amos, all them guys were there, you know, so it was great. It was fun. It was like going to a ballpark with all the guys and playing baseball. That's the way I looked at it. It was fun.
It was like a big team.
Yeah, exactly. We used to spar with each other. You know.
And how would the fights go? Did you guys fight very often as amateurs?
Yeah, back then we were fighting like practically every other week, or sometimes twice a week. There was always something going on. The ballparks, like the McCormicks, the Trinity, there was always holding fights. Everybody was always busy fighting, or tournaments going on. So to be honest, I don't even know how many amateur fights I had. There was so many.
What did your parents think about it?
They didn't know nothing. They would have killed me. It's a funny story how they found out. back then. There was that City TV Fights.
Yeah, Fight Night.
And one day it was on there, and I seen it coming on, and they were watching. I went to change the channel, and they said, no, let's watch this. And sure enough, they showed one fight where I lost. And that was it. They see me, and they just clobbered me.
And so after they found out, what did they think about that?
Oh, they told me to stop. I mean, I was still sneaking in, going to the gym. But later on, when I was 16, 17 years old, they couldn't say too much because I was going, so.
And do you think that do you think it helped you, like, kind of stay focused and off the streets when you were really involved in the boxing?
Yes, back then that's all I was strictly involved was just the boxing. It was so, boxers, people don't understand when you're going to the gym, it just clears your mind, it keeps you away from trouble, unless you go looking for it. With me, it happened just, I was always quiet and just getting involved with certain people that I should have stayed away, but that's part of growing up.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, what was your experiences in going to the tournaments? Did you travel?
Well, we traveled, yeah, I would, Sudbury, played small Kitchener, Buffalo, because I was with the OBA, not with the CABA, C-A-B-A.
Right.
That's what it was, yeah. It wasn't until later on in my amateurs where I didn't know much about it, but they told me that I had to be in that CABA to go to the Olympics. OABA was just an Ontario thing.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, and then when I went over, changed over, I had no fight. So that was part of my thing for not going to the Olympics, because I beat even Ian Clyde that went to the Olympics, and they told me that if I beat this guy, I'll be going into the Olympics, in which I did. I beat him in his own hometown in Montreal, but he was a good fighter too. And that was promised a lot of things, but it didn't happen because it always an excuse. I didn't have enough experience because I didn't go to the international fights, the Pan Am Games, this, that. I only had like 3-4 fights in the CABA thing, so it was a whole bunch of political bullshit.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of politics in boxing. So, as a kid traveling, did you find it exciting to kind of be experiencing different places in Canada?
To me, I didn't really. It was more like a game with all the kids.
Okay.
You know what I mean? The driver would be solid, we'd be flicking him in his ears, driving, stuff like that. We didn't think of anything, like looking outside or anything. We were just playing like kids do.
So it's more fun with the company you guys had.
Yeah, that's what it was. We had a nice group of kids that we were all together. We always had fun. Then we get to the fights, we weren't all nervous or anything. Let's get it over and let's go back, have some fun. Right? That's all it was. Let's do our fights and boom.
How about your fights at the CNE? Sully used to do the annual thing. I fought down there doing
those were
training.
Fun.
Those were fun down there at the CNE.
We always had fun. Let's hurry up. Let's finish this boxing thing. Let's go. We want to go to the action. Play on the games and stuff. That was good. Nice.
And so, when you're getting to turn pro, how did that come about?
Well, that came about when I was trying. There was you had to win. I was going to try to make it to the Olympics. You had to win. I had about 4 or 5 amateur fights, like I was saying, with the CABA thing. So you had to start to be the champ of Ontario. I won that. The guy from CABA was supposed to go. I won that. And then I was supposed to go somewhere else, and nobody was really looking after me. I didn't even know what. I was so naive and green to the sport. I was only like maybe 5-6 years in Canada. I really didn't know too much. So I just nobody was looking after me after that. I didn't know where to go. So I just the hell with it. I quit for about 1.5 years, 2 years, and then I came back when I was 18 and turned pro.
And what did you do during that 1.5 years? Like, did you get involved in other sports? Were you still training?
Yeah, I was getting other sports, drinking, smoking marijuana,
being a
cigarettes.
Kid,
being a teenager back then. But then,
did Travis convince you, or did somebody convince you? Did somebody say, "Hey, try it out"?
Well, then I left Travis there for a while. I was working, and then we hooked up again. They opened up a gym out in the East End, Queen City Boxing, and I started training, and we ended up turning pro.
Okay, and how was that transition going to professional?
It was nerve-wracking in my first pro fight. I was fighting a guy from Oshawa. He had a lot of pro fights underneath his belt. But Travis, he always thought I could beat everybody. And it was nerve-wracking. My blood pressure was super high coming in. They were going to stop the fight, actually, before I even went in, because my thing was pumping so high. I don't know, Travis talked to him, and everything was good. I forget his name. What the hell was his name? Danny Stokes. That's what it was. Yeah, he was a Canadian champion. I think he had about 19 or 20 pro fights. He was something like 20-3 or 20-2. Anyway, I ended up winning a split decision.
Oh, okay.
First pro fight, yeah.
And then, how did you feel after that first fight?
Oh shit! I felt like I was on top of the world. That first pro fight was something else.
And then, how did it progress from there?
And after that, I was really serious. I went back to the gym, like normal do. You take a few days off, go back to the gym, won a few more fights. Staying in the gym. Then things just start going through your head. You get a little bit of money, you get a little bit teased, the girls and this and that. And I just, watching these other guys, these, I don't know what they're called, but, watching everybody, with the girls and everything else, I got carried away. And
distractions.
These distractions that I couldn't control,
Do you think that, was there anybody kind of like mentoring you at that time? To say what to stay away from?
Yeah, he was, but he was the worst guy. he was telling me to stay away, but that's what he was doing.
Okay.
Which was my manager and trainer, Travis.
Yeah.
And the thing was, I was staying at his house. Every time there was a fight, 4 weeks, I would go to get cleaned up and get in shape for a fight. Then I would disappear for a year, 6 months. And fight again, and I go through the same routine. I'd be up to 180 pounds. I got to lose 40 pounds, and it was a mess. It was the torture I did to myself. I should have known better, but I didn't.
Early in your career, though, you fought Al Ford, who was a world-ranked fighter.
Yeah, he was a tough.
And you fought him 3 times, twice?
4 times. He for the first time he got in super shape. They got him. I think it was my 6th pro fight. It was a 12-rounder, and he was.
You beat him?
No, he beat me. He gave me a nice shellacking, actually.
But you did beat him.
Yeah, on the rematch.
In the rematch. Yeah, Al Ford was.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was.
Top
I didn't realize he was that good. He fought guys like Buchanan, which he was champion of the world as a lightweight, and I think he was 20 years old, and I was only about 19 or 18 when I found out I was still green and young. I didn't have my man strength.
Right.
So I could feel the strength on him, and he got himself in super shape, and it was a tough fight.
Wow.
Yeah, I respect that man to this day. He was
the rematch.
Yeah, the rematch we had, I beat him. I stopped him in the 14th round for the junior welterweight title in Canada.
Did you realize how good these guys were at the time when you were fighting them?
That's not what I went there. I respected every fighter that I fought.
Okay.
When I was a child, I respected every fight. Anything can happen in the ring.
Right.
Anything can happen. Like just, for instance, with the Louis Lloyd fight for the North American title, I got dropped in the first round. I wasn't expecting that. But it threw a lot of stuff in my head that anything can happen.
I felt his punches. He could hit.
You sparred with Lou Lloyd.
Yes.
For that fight.
Yeah, I was sparring with Louis Lloyd for that fight. Yeah.
And where was he preparing for the fight?
At Lansdowne Gym.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you were training over at Sully's.
No. Sully was closed at that time. The old club. I was training at
News Place.
Lansdowne.
Oh yeah.
Lansdowne and Newsboys.
Yeah, you
back
used
and
to come
forth.
in at different times.
Yeah, to go and where the sparring was. Where you can get. I used to spar with Clyde a lot. Clyde Gray.
Okay.
Yeah, but with that fight, I twisted my ankle in the first round. I fought with a bad ankle too. On top of that.
Yeah, you were on crutches after that fight.
Yeah, that's almost broke it. God damn.
I think what a lot of guys, especially now, is good for them to understand that people rarely go into a fight 100%. Like a lot of guys now, they wait for the perfect opportunity before they fight, and they end up with like 1 or 2 pro fights a year.
Well, now with the way the money is, they don't have to. That's take a guy like this guy like Floyd and Salino, Cancelo, I should say, and guys like that, they fight once or twice a year. Because of the money holds them up. Back then you had to fight like 5-6 times a year.
But I'm talking about even the young guys that are starting out, they're waiting too much. Like fighting once or twice a year.
Well, sometimes you can have too many fights. Like I figure in a year as a pro, fighting 10 rounds, you should have a good 3-4 fights.
Yeah.
A year.
Okay.
You know, it depends on the how tough the opponent is.
What about a guy starting out?
6 rounds, maybe about
If
6
he's having
fights.
6 rounds, 4 rounds, yeah, I should have as many, you know, a fight a month.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
When you're starting off, in 1 year you got 12 fights.
Right.
So, I mean, they're not the devastating fights where you just, they're learning fights. You know?
Right.
So you should have as many as you can get. Then once you get into that rate, then you slow down a bit. You know, you slow down where you can have 6 fights
Right.
per year. But 1, 2, I don't go for that.
It makes it tough. It makes it tough to
Sure.
build any momentum.
Okay, then it's plus you slack, you lose some things. You should have a good three fights a year, 3-4 fights a year.
Now, would you say as a pro, your most famous fight was the fight against Aaron Pryor?
Yeah.
And how did that come about?
I thought I was never gonna get knocked down with that guy. That's what I was figuring, and I did. The first round again, that's slowed me down, but it was an exciting fight.
So how did that all come to take place?
Well, I think they were trying to make a match with the winner of Mancini with Bramble. It was down in
Livingstone
Buffalo.
Bramble.
Yeah. I was down there and I was waiting, and so what happened was he lost. Mancini lost to Bramble, and that's how the fight. They needed a fighter for that was ranked, and I just happened to be ranked. I think it was 5th in the world at that time, and I ended up getting lucky and getting a fight.
Okay.
I figured it was just going to be an easy fight till he got into with somebody else, right?
Right. And what did you think? What did you think?
What I was training to win.
Okay.
You know, to win the fight. In my mind, I said I can beat this guy. I have the tools to beat him. You know, I'm slippery, good eyes to slip punches. You know, and I had good endurance. And I thought I could beat him. It's just that I lost 3-4 rounds in the beginning with that knockdown. Shook me so.
Yeah.
When I started coming out, I was already behind too much.
Okay. Did he have more power than you thought, or was there anything that caught you that you didn't
that's
expect?
the crazy punches that he throws from anywhere, angles that he
Yeah.
has. Yeah, I was worried too much about that, you know.
Oh,
So
okay.
they threw me off my fight game.
Right.
You didn't see that one coming. That
No.
was one of the most awkward
No, I
punches
no kidding.
ever,
It was
and,
down from the floor when it came. You know, so whatever. If you see the fight, I was throwing a hook,
Yeah.
and he was throwing one. And it's if you see it, because
like
my
a
hand
baseball bat.
comes, my hand comes down like this, dead, because he already caught me, and I was already out.
Right, right.
Most people would have been stopped. That
Oh.
fight would have been stopped.
Yeah.
Nicky went on, and in the 10th round, Gil Clancy was saying, if I was Pryor's people, I'd be worried right now.
I was getting stronger. I was feeling the strength, you know. It's just I should have fought it just a little different. It would have been a different story.
When you came up, did you watch a lot of fight footage of other fighters? Did you study other fighters?
I watched a lot. You see, back then they used to be on Wild World of Sports. Boxing, they always used to show boxing on every month or sometimes twice a month. It used to be not like it is today, pay-per-view and all that. I used to watch Ali on there, Joe Frazier, Arguello. You had Sanchez, Gomez, all them great fighters. And I used to, especially Roberto Duran, I used to pick everything off these fighters. I used to pick every little thing and I would try them in the gym.
Being around the gyms, talking to a lot of people back then, all the old trainers, and that Nicky got a lot of comparison to Willie Pep.
Oh, okay.
And as I met him when I was 12 years old, that was a shock. And he came up to Toronto when we were fighting at the City TV fights back then. Yeah. Willie Pep, the Wheeze. Yeah, plus, I sparred with a lot of guys that came to Toronto. I was just in one of those era where I got lucky, like sparring with Kenny Buchanan, champion of the world. Down in Vegas, even in Los Angeles, with he's dead now. Bobby Chacon, Daniel Red Lopez, so many good fighters. And the one that helped me out here in Toronto was Clyde Gray.
Okay.
He was always there, and I learned a lot off him.
Yeah. It was another world-class fighter.
Yeah. What do you have, 3, 4
I think
title
he had
defenses? That he
three-
tried for the title?
Yeah, 3 shots at the world title, I believe.
Yeah, he was something.
Yeah.
And then the one fight, I don't know if it was against Cuevas or...
Yeah, he fought Cuevas, he fought, what's his name? Napoli's.
Napoli's was
here
a close
at the
fight.
Garden, because I fought on that card.
Yeah,
Because back then you could fight pro and amateur.
So how was it fighting at the Garden? Was that the place that everybody wanted to fight? back in
those
the day?
times it was hard to draw. Most of the draw like was even with Will Ali and George. They made a big drive, but with that card when Jose and Clyde fought it, I think it was about 8,000-9,000
Okay.
people there. But yeah, it was
That's
nice.
a big crowd compared to today.
That's where Toronto Maple Leafs play.
Right.
And actually, I used to work there when I was 16, so I knew the place.
And how did your professional career come to an end? Like, what was the decisions that you decided to stop?
So after the prior fight, it was such a fuzzing, horrendous way to get your money. You know, you had to fight to get your money. Even prior to this day, never, God rest his soul, never got paid. You know, when you gotta go and you just fight your heart out, and you're begging to get your money.
Yeah.
And, you know, because the Bank of Boston withdrew its money. That's what I heard. I'm going on what I heard, but nobody got paid.
Okay.
That's a shame, and I was so tired of the sport, and I just gave it up. I did one more. I was
Winnipeg.
in Winnipeg. It was what do you call those? I just did it because some soccer player got hurt and needed some cash, so they asked me if I can do it, and I did it. That was my last fight. So I did it as what do you call those fights?
Like a charity?
A charity event. That's what it was for the family, and that was the end.
And you went out a winner.
And I quit. I didn't make no comebacks from that. I said I'm retiring, and that was it. At 26, the prime of my career, I retired.
Was it hard to not come back? Like, I'm out of shape, I look like I'm pregnant, and I always have inklings when I go to the fights to want to get back into the ring.
You know what it is? When you're that young, it's not really that hard. If you put your heart and soul into like 4 weeks of it, you can blow off 80 pounds because it's a fast 80 pounds that you put on.
Right.
You know, most of it's water.
Right.
You know, it's just the last 10 pounds that are a little tough to lose. But that you train 4 weeks and boom, you're back down to. So I used to blow up 80, 85, and you just come down to 135, 130.
But did you have that feeling to go back and fight again after you left?
Now I do. At 60, I feel like fighting. What I see, out there, I want to come back. I'm not making fun of the boxing sport. It's just the fighters that I see just don't seem to have that
same drive.
You know, that same thing.
Determination.
I mean, there is some that are there that I can see it, but there's lots of them that just. I don't know, they don't have the balls or whatever you call it, the heart.
Yes.
You know?
And I think it's a different era. I think nowadays a lot of people don't put a lot of stock in taking pride in themselves.
And plus,
with all the titles there.
And plus, with all these damn titles, you know, you might as well give every fighter that's ranked a title. and plus, they changed the gloves. It's all this safety thing. And,
right.
You know, safety comes, the fighter has to train. And you have to do checkups on these guys so that if they're not in no accidents before the fights, like a car accident or something, they have some brain injury or something. So some fighters do have that. Some players, they do. They have an accident before that, 6 months before, and they don't get checked. And I've seen that, and they have a brain. Yeah, the brain scans should be there a week before the fight, and they should check them right after the fight.
Right.
They should. That's the way it is now. The way they're getting, you don't know what these fighters have done before, or they're getting, like when they're sparring, preparing for a fight,
right.
How many punches are taken.
Right.
Because that's where all the damage is done, is when you're sparring, getting ready for a fight.
Absolutely.
This is where you're taking all that beating. I can't see one fight doing that.
Right.
You know, when you're training for that fight, it's not that fight it does, it's all that training, that sparring.
Okay.
That does the damage.
What advice would you have for young fighters coming up today?
What I have is just to stay away from all the problems that we have outside with gangs and stuff like that. Is you know, the dope and everything. Stay away from that. Stay in the gym, train, and respect your body and respect others. You know, just keep training hard.
And be focused during the time that you're
exactly.
boxing.
And you focus on what you want to become. You will make it.
And what do you think? Like, roughly how many amateur fights do you think you had, roughly?
I think I probably had it close to 100.
And with your pro fights, and you're very articulate. You remember the fights. You can lay everything out great. Like, what do you think is the difference between some of the fighters that, they can't really speak too well, and yourself?
Well,
like,
so some of those fighters have taken a lot of punches. They're not You know, they're tough fighters. They're good taking punches, but you take so many punches that it's going to tell.
Nicky,
At the end of your career, you got to be able to block those punches. You got to be a good defensive fighter. You have to learn. Don't just take them, boom, 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 boom. You know, if you're not a very good slipper, have a good eye thing, make sure you learn how to be defensive with your hands, blocking the punches. Because if you're taking them on the chin, they're going to take a toll.
They're going to accumulate.
Nicky,
Eventually, you know, having 30, 40 fights, and you say you're 29, 28 years old, it's going to start taking effect. And then when you hit, you know, in your 35s, 40s, you know, there's been prime examples of that where people, their speeches are going, everything's going.
And they're young men.
And that's from the punches that are taken.
Right.
Nicky was known for his defensive ability, slipping punches and that, and the way he got away from a lot of punches too was not like by running and, you know, dancing and moving around. He would be right in the middle of the ring, slip, slide, step to the side, throw those shots, and then by the time the guy turns to look for him, he's back in the other spot, and the guy's always looking for him and slipping punches, and people at the gyms used to always say, you know, watch this guy, watch.
So who taught you that? Who taught you the defense?
The defense came like natural.
Okay.
A little bit natural, but Travis taught me that, and me watching, you know, guys like Clyde Gray slipping, dodging.
Okay.
You know, and there was another Teddy McQuarter, which was good at the, you know, going with the gloves, working. That's the first time I ever seen those pads.
The big
We had, gloves made as pads back in 68, 69.
Right.
And he was doing that, coming underneath, slipping, sliding. And that's what I want. I didn't want to get hit with punches.
Right.
You know, so I don't think most fighters want, but some don't have any choice.
Right.
They don't have that. Or their coaches don't teach them that.
Right.
You know, that's the thing where it comes to the coach does not teach defense.
Right.
You know, which they should.
Sully, he must have said this to you. He said it to me. Hey, be like Santa Claus. It's better to give than receive.
Yeah, exactly. But that's where it comes. You got to have those trainers teaching these kids right from the beginning as amateurs how to block.
Mm-hmm.
Defense.
And do you think that like you would like to impart that knowledge to some fighters, like if there's the opportunity?
Yeah, of course, I would like. But here, if I was living in Toronto, I would have a gym already out there. There'd be people to help you out here. There's not much help here.
And boxing isn't at the top of everybody's
Nobody's
list.
up here.
Yeah, it's one of those things where people.
It shocks me that Canada is such. I mean, America is so huge. Yeah, they got more people. It's more. But you know, you go anywhere else and boxing it's like hockey.
Right.
You know, but I don't understand why boxing here is down at the bottom. You know, I just don't get it. I mean, hockey and baseball, basketball, anything that start up here becomes a big, huge.
Exactly.
I just don't get it.
Maybe it's partly, I think, the boxing community here too, because we've seen that it can be a fight town because we see how people come out for the UFC here.
Yeah.
So people are coming out for fights.
See, there's another thing. The UFC. I mean, it draws big.
Yes.
They come. And I just don't understand this boxing. Why?
I think it's the boxing community. To be quite honest,
Yeah,
I think
that's true.
Everyone's against each other.
Everybody's against each
no
other.
one wants to work together.
So that's the whole thing. You have to work together in order to build.
There's a piece of the pie for everybody.
And boxing too, you can't just have one show and then throw one a year, 2 years later. It's got to be a thing, steady to keep it going. You gotta, and the number one thing is to have a good fight. You know, a couple of good fights, not just, you know, amateurs, guys coming throwing punches from left field here or there. You gotta have a good fight in order for the people to come back.
Right.
You show them an exciting fight. You gotta make sure the guy that's the promoter that's putting up these fights gets two good fighters. You know, they're not running in the ring, you know, running to protect them, whatever. They're there and they fight. They slip, counter, boom, boom. You know, a good, exciting fight is what you need.
Exactly.
Right.
You get a fighter that you know.
People
Every fight he fights is going to be an exciting fight.
Yeah,
even if he's not a main event fighter, but you put him on that card, people know. Even if the others all crap out, they remember that.
Yeah.
What a fight!
You
This
gotta
was
have
a
at least,
war.
you know, at least one or two good fights on that card. Even if two don't, you gotta have something that they can remember and come out the next time.
Yeah.
And still sharpen the mind. Make another fight a month later.
And what do you think about the promoting of boxing? So the one thing too is a lot of people don't know the fighters. They don't know. So what do you think about the exposure of boxing?
Well, first, if the guy doesn't know, that's why you hire a promoter that knows. the fighters who to get it and who. So you gotta have the matchmaker is the most important thing. You gotta have the matchmaker getting the right fighters to make a great fight. You know, you gotta have guys in there, not two guys they got the style of being a boxer. Two boxers ain't gonna make a good fight.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're both gonna stay outside the ring, and they're gonna be judged. It's gonna be a dull fight. So you want an aggressor, if you will, and the guy that's out there just moving, sliding. You're gonna get a good fight out of that.
Yeah.
You know, because the guy's he's not running. He's staying there and he's throwing punches. The guy's throwing. You're gonna have a great fight. So the matchmaker is the key to the promoter's thing.
But like before, at the time when you were fighting, like everybody knew who you guys were. They knew yourself. They knew Clyde Gray. They knew George Chavallo.
Advertising.
But you were fighting amateurs on City TV all the time. They were getting that exposure, which they don't show a lot of amateur fights on cards.
Well, in our days there was. You know, like I said, there's always fights going on all the time. You know, we either was at the ballpark. You know, in like McCormick's, what are those called? The athletic
city,
the city
community
playgrounds.
centers.
Yeah, and there was always fights going on as amateurs, and people would go and watch. Like you get 500, 1,000, but they would follow. You know, and that's how boxing was always.
And the newspapers would be there.
At newspapers be there, and that's the whole thing. When you have a fight, the newspaper people got to come. Either whether you got to call them, they have to show up. They got to be the backbone to that.
Right.
On top of that, so the promoter can't do it himself. He's got to get that advertisement out there, and the promoter has to come back with another fight. I don't want him to lose all his cash. That's no good. He's got to, as long as even if you're breaking even for the first few until it builds up is great. Then you start making a little bit of money, which is good for everyone.
So I'm finishing up this episode in the office. It was an amazing Sunday. Today, sunny in Guelph, Ontario, speaking with Nicky Furlano and Dave Hutchinson. Thank you both so much for your time and the stories. Thank you, Nicky, for also shedding some light on his trainer-manager, Travis Sugden. And we hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember, you can ask us any questions related to boxing by sending us a message through Twitter at DOKPOSIO, through email okposio@hotmail.com, and don't forget to subscribe to get every episode of the DO Boxing Show. Thanks for tuning into this episode. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll catch you in the next one.
많이 기다렸지 I'm so sorry 나 이제 결심했지 Are you ready 꽤나 길었지 나의 방황이 이제 걱정하지 마 다신 가지 않을 테니 부를 때마다 난 없었지 Silence 걱정 마도 착했으니 Shall we dance 주변에 들자 이제 내 손 잡아